Welcome to Recover and Ready. It's time to talk Versus System 2PCG. I'm Matt, and today we're bringing to you First Draft, a deck tech series featuring Storm from the House of X box. But before we get started, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. It really helps spread the word about Versus System 2PCG. So what are the goals of First Draft, a deck tech series? Well, the first goal is to provide a starting point for players who are wanting to jump in and play. I'm not trying to give you a meta read, but rather, I'm hoping to give you some ideas on what cards you might consider when playing this main character. From there, you can tune to your specific meta, be it competitive, kitchen table, or whatever. And the second goal is to help the community learn from all of you guys. Use the comment section to help us know what cards you guys would consider playing in Storm. Storm, at level 1, is an X-Men affiliated main character with Flight. She's a 3/4 and has 5 health. Her first ability is Master Thief, which in the main phase you can pay red and have each enemy player discard a random card. Her level up condition is called Mistress of the Elements, and it needs 4 XP. When a basic location appears on your side, Storm gains an XP. So right out the gate, this means we're going to want to play a lot of basic locations, and we are going to want to try to protect her a little bit in order to get to level 2 as fast as possible, because this means that we're going to take at least 4 turns in order to do it. So we have to find a way to survive until then. Her main phase ability, Master Thief, I would say for me personally doesn't come in handy that often. I really want to reserve those reds for the level 2 because her ability there is so powerful. At level 2, her stats go up to 6/7, but she still has 5 health and still has flight. Her ability is Weather Witch, which in the main phase you can pay a blue, a yellow, a green, and a red to create weather for the rest of the game. So what exactly is create weather? Well, when you create weather, what you're going to do is you are going to choose one of the 4 weather abilities, and you can only use that specific weather ability once per game. At that point, it's active and it lasts for the rest of the game. The first one is Blizzard. At the start of an enemy player's main phase, you freeze an enemy character on their side. This is really powerful because it basically lets you grind the game down to a halt and control who you want to attack. The timing of freezing them in the main phase basically means that you lock that character out of 2 combat steps. So you're really going to be able to control the pace of the game at this point forward. The second ability is Fog. Enemy defenders can't strike. In this particular deck, I basically have made Fog the second most important ability after Blizzard, and you'll see how I try to emphasize that in the selection of supporting characters. So for me, the most important first is Blizzard, because that freeze really lets you take control of the game. And for me, the second most important is Fog. Depending on how you build the deck though, Cyclone or Thunderstorm could also be very important. So the third one is Cyclone, where enemy characters lose and can't gain flight. And last we have Thunderstorm. At the start of each enemy player's build phase, you put a negative counter on each character on that side. So let's take a moment and quickly summarize what are we trying to do with Storm. At level 1, we're really trying to protect her while we play out some basic locations in order to level up as fast as possible without dying, hopefully. At level 2, what we want to do is grind the game to a halt by using that Blizzard ability, freezing their best guys turn after turn, and then at that point attacking them and not allowing them to strike back. Cyclone, Thunderstorm, etc., you're just going to watch out and use the abilities as needed. It's not always so linear, but Blizzard is pretty much always the first one that you're going to use. Okay, so what context am I going to be playing Storm in? The first draft deck techs that I'll be presenting are for Modern and for Duality. Modern is typically what we play at my locals and also kitchen table, and Duality is the main format at the moment. So is she going to be good in these formats? I couldn't really say, but what I will say is I think she's a fun main character, and I'd like to give her a go and see what happens. I'd also love to hear what context you guys would play Storm in. And with that, let's get to the decks. We're going to start off by looking at my draft for Storm in the Modern format, and we're going to follow it up by looking at my draft of Storm in the Duality format. Let's start by talking about locations. We're playing all the basics: 4 training ground, 4 laboratory, 4 fortress, and 4 academy. That helps us level up Storm as fast as possible. And we're playing 4 school for the gifted youngsters. Even though these don't count for XP, once we get to level 2, oftentimes you'll need to fill in the gaps for what colors you didn't get on the basics. And this will allow us to more easily get our create weather ability off. To support our plan of leveling up as fast as possible, we are going to play Kane on 2 and Mirage on 3, When Kane comes in, he's going to search us all the way to the next basic location in our deck. That'll help us get our colors out as fast as possible. And if we play Mirage on 3 and we have extra basic locations in our hand, we can drop an extra one and get that XP even faster, leveling up before turn 4. One of the trickiest things about building Storm is that you use so many slots for locations that you're not able to play a ton of characters on each drop. And so staying alive is going to become really important in terms of our deck building. Therefore, we're going to play Iceman on turn 1 so that we can freeze an opposing character and stave off wounds, and play Abominable Snowman on 4 in order to keep delaying our opponent's ability to attack. Extra copies of cards that we may not to see a bunch of, such as Mirage, come in handy for discarding to Abominable Snowman. And once we create Fog at level 2, Abominable Snowman's ability to keep striking defenders but not have them strike him back will really grind the game down to a halt, in combination with us continuing to play more Iceman, and most importantly, having used Storm's Blizzard ability first so that we can be freezing down a character every turn for a couple of combat steps. In a world where we're freezing so many characters through Storm's Blizzard ability, Iceman, and Abominable Snowman, Lilith becomes really good, sitting in the back row, really hard for anyone to attack her. And every single turn, she's dazing, she's stunning, she's wounding, she's KOing supporting characters, removing them from the game, and then we're redrawing her. Because this game is going to go long, and the likelihood, if things are going our way, it's more likely that our opponent actually scoops than that we beat them through wounds. My apologies for the change of format. At the time of the filming of this video, the newer sets from the House of X arc are not in the deck builder, but let's keep looking at these cards. Sage is going to become super important for us in this game. Once we are freezing down our opponent's best characters, sometimes we might get to a state in the game where they simply have a super huge defense, and Sage is going to get to them. And if we're able to do Fog as well as Blizzard, the ability for them to strike her back is going to be nil, and she is just going to keep coming in and taking out guys one by one. And like I alluded to previously, after Blizzard, Fog is going to become our next most important ability in the way that I built this deck, and Deacon Frost is one of the reasons that that becomes the case. By making it so that our opponents don't get to strike back when they defend, it makes it really easy for us to get our supporting characters to just keep getting more and more and more vitality counters. The freeze from Blizzard makes it really easy for us to choose who we're going to attack. For example, Deacon's got 9 attack. He might not be able to hit something that's a little bit bigger, but if we freeze down their bigger guy, he can hit something that's smaller and get more vitality, while someone that's slightly bigger like Thing or like Sage can take down their big guys. The ability for us to be gaining more vitality with each supporting character as we attack them without them striking back is going to give us a lot more flexibility on how we control the pace of the game. Importantly, because of the fact that we used up so much space in the deck for locations, we aren't running as many characters as our opponents may be running. And with this in mind, we really need to be gaining the extra health on our characters so that they can have staying power. And the need to have guys stick around is one reason why I'm playing something like Hyperion on 7. When he dies, he's just going to keep coming back to my hand, and I can replay him. Also on 7, Ares becomes brutal if we use the Fog ability and our opponent is not able to strike us back. He'll just be axing guys out of the way with his lethal. And once again, if there's something on the other side that's too big even for him, no worries. Our Blizzard will keep them frozen down, and a Sage will take care of them later. Lastly, on 7, I included the new supporting character Zorn, since his Black Hole in My Head ability gives us one more tool to handle problematic cards. And in Modern, my Omega of choice for Storm's deck is Exodus. When you are freezing guys down with Storm's Blizzard ability, Iceman, and the Abominable Snowman, Exodus is an absolute house and a lockout. he lets us lock out another one of their attacks in addition to the ones we're all doing at the end of each enemy recovery phase, where it says exhaust an enemy character on that side. And in addition to that, you make them discard a card every turn, you turn one of their locations down each and every turn, and you put 3 negative counters on an enemy character every single turn. So in addition to him giving us more pseudo freeze effects, we are also having more agency to control the size of our opponent's characters so that we can pick and choose freely which ones we want to deal with and which ones can sit out. All right, so we're moving on to our last few cards here. We got Destiny as a sort of 5th copy of Kane, hoping that we can call out a location and get one that we need. And then we have some defensive cards, Defend the Weak and Shock to the System, to try to dodge wounds during the early turns of the game and be able to stall out until we can get the locations that we need to pop off to level 2 and do our Blizzard ability. All right, and to wrap it up, let's just do a quick review of the list. For Storm in Modern Casuals, we got 1 copy of Destiny from New Brotherhood, 4 Sage, 4 Defend the Weak, 1 Zorn. We're playing all 4 copies of each of the basic locations, 2 copies of Thing, 4 Shock to the System, 3 Mirage, 4 Kane, 4 Iceman, 1 Hyperion, 3 Exodus, 2 Deacon Frost, 1 Ares, 3 Abominable Snowman, and 3 Lilith. I hope you enjoyed the deck, and I would love to hear what cards I might be missing here that you would love to play if you were to build Storm in Modern. And now we're going to move on to Duality. So let's jump into our Duality version of Storm. I'm going to recommend that you go to the description and click the link and see the full deck list, since I'm going to be primarily going through some of the few cards that we have in this deck that we don't have in the other one, because ultimately what we get here is a lot of repeat of the Modern deck, but we had to fill in the gaps since in Duality we are only allowed to play 2 copies of each card, with the exception of basic locations and any locations, of course, in which case we can play a minimum of 2, but we could also play more. And as stated before, at the top, you'll see some of the cards that are in House of X that don't appear yet in the deck builder. Just to remind you that I am still playing cards like Sage, Build It Up, and Defend the Weak. So let's start off talking about agents. Kane is one of our filtering abilities in Modern and in this deck as well that helps us get to our basics. But without being able to play the full playset of Kane, I wanted to have additional filtering opportunities, and I'm bringing those in through agents who can have us look at the top cards of our deck according to the number of agents we have and either leave them on top or put them on the bottom, so that way we can get to cards that we want. We can get those locations we need quickly in the early game. We can try to stay on curve, and we can also get cards that we need to close out the game later on. So Sharon Carter is our other 2-drop that we'll be adding in addition to Kane. As you can see, in addition to being an agent, she draws us a card when she comes in. Our 1-drops have a lot of good agent opportunities for us. We got Slingshot and Victoria Hand. Slingshot gives us a cheap and repeatable way to keep filtering through our deck, while in addition to being an agent, Victoria Hand allows us to shore up some of the weakness of, for example, if we happen to level up but not have any greens, she can let us still pop off our superpower as if we had a green, despite not having one that turn. We are concerned with staying alive in the early game, and previously we had a bunch of guys that could help us freeze our opponent's board to stall out until we reach that point where we get to level 2 and we can pop off Blizzard. In this case, in addition to Iceman, we're going to be playing Wasp so that they have to get in more attacks every turn in order to get to us. And of course, she also stings when she comes in. Shock to the System becomes our replacement for the extra 2 copies of Defend the Weak that we can't play. Once again, we're using it to stave off some early damage. And lastly, as a way to stave off a bit of early wounds on Storm, we're playing Jessica Jones because they're going to have to get in a bunch of attacks in order to get through her. Other than that, of course, we all know that her Psionic Protection ability is pretty good. On 5, we're playing She-Thing in addition to Sage. Gotta love that 3 health like always, as well as her ability to team attack with Thing. And particularly after we've done Blizzard, if we're able to get the Fog ability off for Storm as well, Her ability to attack with Thing and get into the really big characters without taking extra wounds is going to be super helpful for us. At this point in the draft, at the 7 drops, I'm still a little bit unsure of what exactly to do. I feel like playing 4 is probably a lot. I liked the 3 that I was playing previously. But it's kind of like play 2 or play 4. And if I get to this point and if I whiff on 7, it might not be good. So I'm not really sure. Maybe here you can give me some advice on what you would do on 7 for Duality. Decided to drop Zorn and instead just go with Ares and Hype Man. Hype Man, once again, I can keep getting him back to my hand. And, ultimately, if I can discard an extra copy of him to the Abominable Snowman, it's not bad. Of course, you only need 1 copy since he's an Eternal. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Duality draft. Let's just do a quick recap. We're playing Sage, Build It Up, Defend the Weak, Wasp, Victoria Hand, Training Ground, Thing, Slingshot, Shock to the System, She-Thing, Sharon Carter, School for the Gifted Youngsters. Still playing Mirage, Laboratory, Kane, added in Jessica Jones. Still playing Iceman, Hyperion, Fortress, Exodus, Deacon Frost, Ares, Academy, Abominable Snowman, and Lilith. All right, so that wraps up my first draft of Storm from House of X. A big shout out to all of you that made it this far. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to Recover and Ready. Time to go out and slap some cardboard.